Hello guys, today's video is mostly for beginners. So basically, let's just say you just started out playing Throne of Liberty and you hit level 50. Now you're wondering, what should I do? Like, what are the things that I can do to progress, to get my gear, get into the end game and so on. So we're gonna talk about this today. There are basically a couple of things that you should be doing. So a lot of people now are thinking the game actually feels a bit casual, and the fact that you have things like those tokens that they regenerate every day, it feels a little bit like a mobile game, right? I agree with that. It is a bit funny and it's kind of limiting, but at the same time, I think they've actually kind of figured it out somewhere like a middle ground. So they want people to be limited in a way. I understand that, and it is a bit different than most other games. So with that being said, let's see what are the things that you can do at level 50 once you hit level 50. So the first thing I would say is daily contracts. So you got 10 contracts per day. You can check them in your contents tab, and here you got a bunch of things. Actually, we're going to talk about that as well, but here's the resistance contract. This is the tab that you're looking for. So here you see you got remaining contract rights 10. That means you got 10 per day, but here you don't see all the information that you can access. You got contract scrolls here. That's a different thing. We're going to talk about that as well. So the limit is 5 at a time, but daily limit is 10. So you get 10 per day and you can stack up. So we're going to go to one of the NPCs around here, I think. Obviously for end game, you don't want to be doing this area, but I'm just showing it just so you know what I'm talking about. So that's the contract manager. This NPC you can find in a couple of areas. So this one's like a bit lower level, but you have this one here. I think there must be one. That's another one, contract manager on Sanctuary Oasis. Anyway, you got a couple in the whole area. Generally speaking, for endgame, you'll be focusing primarily on Watcher's Post or Pure Light Tower, which is actually around Pure Light Hue anyway. And Watcher's Post would give you stuff for Ruins of Terrain and Phonos Basin. Basically, for me, personally, I prefer Watcher's Post because it's pretty simple. I mostly target Phonos Basin contracts. They're really easy to do. The rewards are basically the same. So end game contracts. Like if you go into some other area, it's going to be a bit lower level. So you're not going to get the maximum potential rewards. So just pay attention to that. And basically that's what it looks like anyway. So you go see contract objectives. That should be the one. Yeah. So basically, as you can see, these are low levels, not for me. Those are 28, 31. You want to do level 50. And they'll give you better rewards than that, obviously. And you can choose depending on what you need, what kind of rewards. But in the beginning, you probably want to have polished crystals. And here we don't have that. It's not a lithograph. So let's just go to the endgame contract manager. So in here, that's the Watcher Post. You can find the contract manager right here. So here's the stuff that I can. Right. I have 10 right now. I didn't do them for today. The maximum is 60. So basically, this is another sign that the game does feel like a mobile game. You can just stack them up, pretty much just come in one day, just do everything. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that. I'm not going to criticize the game too much right now. Basically, you just choose some of these rewards. You can get the rare parchments, which you need for skill books. So you probably want to get this one. That's also for making the skill growth stones or skill books anyway. And then the rubrics, the Emerald, and there's another one, Stallon. I think they're mostly for basically for weapon, armor, and accessories to create growth stones for them. But anyway, you can pick. That's one of the things that you should be doing every single day, or at least, I mean, don't go over the cap because you'll be losing potential rewards. You get a bunch of different rewards from that, and basically a lot of things are connected. While you do these and also some other activities, you generate Abyss contract tokens. So we're going to talk about that as well. So that's one of the things. The other thing that you should probably be doing every single day, or at least as much as you can, is in your co-op dungeon tab. Here you can see all the dungeons that are available. We're focusing on level 50, of course. So that's tier 1, basically 1-star dungeons. You got around, I think it's like 6 dungeons. So that's the minimum combat power requirement. Of course, based on my experience, you will feel a little bit better being somewhere above that just to feel comfortable. From what I see, they've put the bare minimum combat power. It's just going to be a bit difficult for you or just about anybody anyway. That combat power is in case you're doing little to no mistakes at all. But if you're brand new, you'll probably be doing some mistakes. So keep that in mind. Of course, just by doing the basic stuff and level up and do a lot of the side quests, you probably end up with way more than that once you level up to level 50. So anyway, so those are tier 1s. They require, again, that's the thing we're talking about. You get 900 of these dimensional contract tokens per day, and these level 50 dungeons require 300 each. Now, if you do core dungeons, the beginning dungeons, they're low level, and they need less dimensional contract tokens to open the final chest, but they give you pretty basic rewards, and it's not advisable to bother with them. I did them in the beginning just for personal preference, but generally speaking, you should focus only on these. And of course, once you get to the point where you can have like much higher combat power, you can jump into 2-star dungeons, which is like tier 2, and they need minimum 2500 combat power. So again, it's gonna be way better for you to go around 3000 anyway. Now they use different types of tokens. So as you can see, we're already having a separate type of energy source that regenerates over time, just like in mobile games, but you just have a lot of them basically. So you may be thinking, hey, I can do only 3 dungeons of these, and they're actually relatively short. They take like 15 minutes each. And the contracts that we talked about, they also take about like 20 minutes to do like 10 of them anyway. So you're looking at maybe less than 1 hour just doing these. But then you also have tier 2. And tier 2 are a bit more difficult, a bit more time. So add this and you're looking at, depending on the groups, it may combined, it may be close to 2 hours for everything. Now I stacked up a little bit more here. Now they use 450, but you still regenerate 900 per day, which means you can only do 2 of them per day. However, the rewards and, for instance, the Abyssal contract tokens that regenerate are more. So basically, you can expect similar amounts of rewards or value for 2 of these dungeons, similarly to 3 of tier 1 dungeons. So that's another thing you can do after you hit level 50, but that's going to be a bit further down the road. Next thing you can do, now these things you have to pay attention, are really related to your schedule, generally speaking. So once you go in a map, you can click on this tab here, timetable. You generally would open this by default. It's a region, select different regions and see information about them. But you want to go to the timetable. Now here you can see that's a full schedule, right? So the current schedule is a bit better because they're not mixed up as they used to be, and now you have a lot of things going on almost every hour. So that's kind of good. Now, the one thing I want to talk about is dynamic events, which are actually static events because they always happen at specific hours and no conditions are required for these events to happen. So they're basically static events. I don't know why they call them dynamic events. That's a different topic. However, you can check all of them basically at different times, and you can do different ones because in the beginning you have side quests and achievements to complete for each and different one. So as a fresh level 50, you want to try pretty much all of them as long as they're not in a conflict situation or something like that. So basically here you have co-op. They have like different tabs here, you see like different categories. Some of them are always on peace, or most of the time from what I see. So this one is co-op, which means all players must work together. You have peace, which is basically individual. Everybody's for themselves. There's no PvP or anything, but you have individual score. You also have the guild, which is basically divided. The whole dynamic event is done by different guilds. So obviously, if you go solo, you're not going to have much of a chance to compete. They're really basic stuff. They're not exactly PvP, but some of them do have PvP involved. It's a great way to get introduced to the game, some of the PvP mechanics and things like that. And they give you some basic rewards. It's not a lot, but it takes like 15 minutes. So that's a good thing you can do in between. That's a Dominion event. I actually don't know what Dominion would mean, to be honest. But yeah, that's about it. You have different ones, so you check them out. So that's one thing here. The next thing you can do is actually in the same tab. Is the feud bosses. So feud bosses are actually these red icons here. You can see that. That's how you can easily distinguish both of them. And they're always separated right now. So you got the green or green bluish icons are always dynamic events, well, static events. And the red ones are always going to be field bosses. Now here, there's one more important thing to keep in mind. The blue bird here is peace. So as a new player, you should focus doing these, obviously. These that says war those are usually based on guild or team contribution. Usually guilds are going there, and unless you actually go with a proper guild, you probably have no chance of doing anything there. You'll be killed so many times and you're not going to get reward. So in the beginning, you should focus on peace field bosses. They're basically like world bosses, and you can do in a window of 12 hours, they have 5 different timers. So you can do only one at a time. They die really fast anyway, but even if they didn't die, you have 5 minutes for the portal to enter in a specific instance. Basically, after 5 minutes pass, the other portals are closed as well as your portal that you're in the current boss. So even if the other bosses are technically alive in their own instances, you won't be able to enter. So that means you can only do one at a time at a different timer, and you can choose different ones. Basically, if you click on them, you can see what kind of rewards they give. So you can just make sure that you check that and see what is good for you, what you're aiming. So refer to your build basically. And you have many different things. You can get lucky or not, but generally speaking, these rewards, from what I understand, direct drop from the boss. It's based on contribution, like personal contribution. I'm not 100% sure that this is correct, but this is what I've been told. For instance, you're in a group, you help each other while you're fighting the boss, but the contribution is not based on your team. It's personal for each individual, and you have a chance to get directly one of these items from the boss that can be sellable on the action house for a lot of lucent. But most of the time, that would mean that DPS classes and generally speaking, pay to win players will have huge advantage over the rest of the people. So yeah, keep that in mind. Anyway, we're not going to talk about field bosses too much right now. That's just another activity you're going to do. And you have a guaranteed reward regardless of your luck, based on just simply having some contribution, right? You're going there, you do some DPS, and that's it. Like, you're always going to get these rewards here. So basically that's going to be that's a new thing. That's a rune bundle. You can get different runes from here. I think you have a chance for blue ones, but also for gray ones and green ones. Generally speaking, just about anything, right? It's random. And you also gonna get this chest. That's individual chest from each boss. All the guaranteed rewards you see on the list are always the same amount, except this last one is individual for each different boss. And this has a chance to, it gives you the option to actually select a specific item, but the drop rate for this one is very low. All these are guarantees. You get 5 rewards, but they're basically like materials and things like that. But this is only 0.3% chance. So you're always gonna get this chest, but to get this one, that's the very good stuff, you only have 0.3% chance. That means on average, if you think about it this way, if you open 300 of these chests, you have maybe get one of these. I mean, obviously that's just estimation. That's just, you know, it's a complicated thing to talk about, but generally speaking, that's what 0.3 means. So that's ridiculously low, but it is what it is. So keep that in mind. Anyway, the field bosses take only like maybe about 5 minutes. I mean, waiting for them is 5 minutes. Then they die in like 1 minute. So it's pretty easy things to do. If you're there, you can just do it at this time. So you also have arch bosses, which are basically once a week. Now you won't see them here. There, I think we gotta check. You gotta check the schedule. As far as I remember, one should be on Wednesday and one is probably on Friday, but I cannot guarantee you. I'm not 100% sure when they were. They're a bit more difficult, but generally speaking, they also die in just a couple of minutes, and they give you slightly better chests, which is basically these are 2 arch bosses right here. As you can see, they actually give you a little bit more materials, as you can see. And however, instead of getting a chest that has a chance to give you one of the weapons from the bosses, you only have a chance to get soul fragment for each one of them. They have different soul fragments. This one even has a fishing rod. Yeah, the actual items that they drop are extremely expensive, extremely good. However, they don't drop like that. You can probably, I'm not sure, but maybe you can actually get the drop directly from the boss. But again, it's based on contribution, so that's probably very low chance anyway. Keep that in mind. The next thing you can do after you've done all the contracts, all the dungeons and so on, you have these Abyssal contract tokens. So you regenerate these by doing other activities, including the ones that I just mentioned, and a couple of other ways. And you got maximum of 20,000. Beyond that, it's not going to be stacked. I'm not sure if you get item to recover, but you're probably just losing it. But anyway, it's no point of getting to 20,000 and just losing any potential. Whenever you have like 10, 15,000, you should just use them up. And how you use them? Basically, you have a couple of dungeons you can check here in the region, and I'll show you on the map as well. You go down the road, and so this is the region Lastland. You've got these two open world dungeons. This is how you see that they're dungeons. City's Abyss is level 20 to level 50, and Shattered Crypt is level 50 to 50. That's like just max level. They have different floors. Base, you can just click and just check the layout. City's Abyss has a lot of floors. That's why it has low levels and mid levels and high levels. You have Stone Guard as well, which is all the way down here. You got 4 other open world dungeons. These are low level dungeons, Temple of Silhouette and Ant's Nest. You could have probably tried them by just playing the game anyway, but you should focus on these high level dungeons. So you have Sanctum of Desire and Sorodoma Island. They're a bit trickier to get into, so Sanctum of Desire is only open during rain. This is the location right here. You can just teleport and it's right there. And Sorodoma Island is right across this sea. You can swim if you want. However, to actually teleport, you must use the whale. So the Gigantrid whale, which actually is not here. I don't see it. You've probably seen it. You can get on top of the whale and actually get to this area. It's a bit higher, so you need to jump from the whale. So it might be a little bit tricky in the beginning, but eventually you get there. And once you do that, you can just teleport and do this. And when you do any of these open world dungeons, you will use these tokens, these Abyssal contract tokens, just by killing enemies. So the more enemies you kill, the more of these you use up. And this enables you to get extra Solant, extra drops, and so on and so on. Without this, you can still get stuff, but it's way lower chance and it's going to be way less anyway. So obviously don't waste your time in these areas unless you have Abyssal contract tokens. Keep in mind, Sorodoma Island is the whole map here is considered an open world dungeon. And during the night, these dungeons that you can see are actually locked. This is going to open up very soon because it just became day now, but they're usually locked during the night. And if you're inside, everybody's enabled PvP by default, so you can attack other players and other players can attack you. So unless you want PvP, you're advised to just don't go during the night, just wait when it's day. So that's another thing you can do. Other dungeon basically is, that's a low level dungeon right here, that's the Ant Nest. Then you have Temple of Silhouette right here. And then you have, that's Silas Abyss, the big dungeon with 6 floors. And also all the way here to the north, you got Shattered Crypt. So you can do any of these, but just do the level 50 anyway for the best rewards, best drops. So that's another thing. And when you do them every week, you can get contract scrolls that enable you to accept different contracts for these dungeons. You can buy those scrolls weekly from the general merchant, which is called Sundry's Merchant. As you can see, so here it's this one. I've already bought it, so it's sold out for me. Allied Resistance, Force Contract, Scroll 3, Laslan, and Stone Guard. You got six per week, and each one of these give you 1 contract for every endgame dungeon. So basically, you're gonna get 6 of each, but you also get them from other sources as well. So yeah, generally speaking, I end up with a lot of these contracts. So keep that in mind. You also have Taedal Tower, which is also weekly, you get 3. That's super easy. You've probably done a little bit of the Taedal Tower. So these, you've probably done them while you're leveling. They're like low levels. And as you progress, these are just one-time rewards. So you go around, you do them once, and you get level 20, and that's it. You get 3 contracts per week, which is going to ask you to kill any of these at random, but they'll be sort of like buffed. Each of these is random, so you get more, you get to repeat them eventually and get a little bit of reward. Not as much as this, obviously. The first time is the best, but yeah, that's another thing you can do. And while we're here in this tab, you can check Gate of Infinity. Now, this is a bit more like, not exactly for a entry level 50 character, but eventually you get into these. Basically, these like the same bosses from Taedal Tower, however, they're just buffed. They're much, much stronger. They do more damage, they have more HP, and you have a time on them. You have it's like a challenge, right? If you complete the challenge, as you can see, I didn't complete the 3-star challenge. So you got the 1-star is just defeat the actual boss. 2-star is when you do it under 5 minutes, and 3 stars when you do it under 3 minutes. And these are the rewards you get for every single challenge. And you get, usually you have 2 at a time. There are different times, so you can see the available time. This was from 5th of December until 12th of December, which is about in 2 days. Yep. And then you have the second one, which started from 9th of December to 16th. So they're like for 1 week, but they change in like a couple of days. So they don't come both at the same time, which is great actually. Also, you have rank rewards, but this is like super endgame. You gotta be like extremely good. As you can see, my rank is not below 20. For rank rewards, you get extra stuff based on your final rank. So basically the first one gets 600k plus restoration coins and usually get like a emote. The second one gets a little bit less, third one gets even less, and then all the way to level 20, to rank 20, they get 300,000 Solon, which, you know, that's just great whenever you're up to the challenge, but keep that in mind. That's pretty easy activity as well. As you can see, it takes just a couple of minutes. Another thing that you can do is obviously it's very advisable to find yourself a guild. So I got myself a pretty decent guild. Just find people that are like-minded, like people that have similar mindset to you. Obviously, this might be a bit more challenging at first, but eventually you find the right type of guild for you that does the activities you want, that play at the time that you're playing as well. Just by doing different tasks like guild contracts and so on, you get rewards. These are guild coins, and these guild coins you can buy a lot of consumables and some useful stuff as well. But the more important thing usually is you can't really check it from here. I'm gonna go to the guild hall just to show you what you can do. The guild hall is usually located in lv50 village. So just gonna teleport there. So we're right in front of the guild hall. Basically, you can check on the map. This is lv50 village, as you can see right there. So around the center of the village, you can see this guild base. For some reason, that's the only location for the guild hall. The other ways to enter is if you're summoned by the leader with the guild summoning gate. But anyway, this is the way to go. So you go in, and if you have a decent guild, usually you'll be doing guild raids every week, and you have a limit based on your guild level. So eventually, once you hit, I think you have to hit level 70 on the guild. You have the maximum limit of 7 guild raids per week. And the guild raids are basically field bosses. So you can see all the field bosses that are available that you kill. As you can see, this week we didn't do them yet. It's the beginning of the week. 7 out of 7. So you get 7 kills and then it needs to reset. These are all the bosses that you can do regularly outside with a bunch of people, like with hundreds of people, for example. And your drop rate is pretty low there, like pretty difficult to obtain anything. However, this seems to be the best way to get specific field boss loot. I'm gonna say it again, you need to find a decent guild that has a good loot distribution system where it's kind of fair to everybody that participates in these events, and everybody has equal chance of getting something useful for them, not just random drops and everybody's just rolling for whatever and then they just trade it out. Like, it's pretty unfair in some cases where, for instance, let's say, I don't know, maybe this item is really decent for you, for your build. That's for like, that's for healer. And if the guild doesn't have a decent distribution system, let's say everybody rolls whatever and they don't need it, but they just get it because they need the trade or just want to salvage or whatever, just put them in their little graph collection. But however, what about if you need it actually for your build? So what is more important in general? And in my guilds, from what I see, the general philosophy is that we want to distribute items based on roles so that everybody gets geared up. That's the highest priority, so we get a strong guild. We don't roll for something that we don't need unless nobody needs it anyway. Like, if somebody needs it for their main, only they roll for it. Like, let's say we're 20 people doing it, but only 2 people actually needs the item. So only these 2 people will roll for it. And if it's just one, then they just get it because it's for their main build anyway. If nobody wants, we have different rules, but generally speaking, that's the whole idea. You want to get a decent guild that you can do these bosses. So we do most of these, to be honest. We did like most of these bosses as well. And I've actually got a couple of drops from that as well, which is pretty decent. It's going to be very difficult to get these drops from the field bosses outside, but with a decent guild, you actually have a chance to get these. Some of them are extremely expensive on the action house, so keep that in mind. For instance, Nirma's sword. Some people drop this for like 50, 60,000 loosened. Obviously, it's ridiculous. It doesn't worth that much. It's just for whales that are willing to just spend shitloads of money. But you can actually get these things from here. Like another one that's actually for me, and I still look for it, is a Dentus Greatsword. Obviously, outside it's going to be really difficult, but sometimes with the guild, we decide to you can just spam the same boss. If everybody's okay with that, you can just literally do 7 trials on the same boss, and eventually you're going to get some drops. So definitely find a decent guild. So the next thing you can do is fishing and cooking. This is like an additional side thing that you don't have to do it, but it's very decent to do it anyway. So you can check right here on this tab, miscellaneous level. You can see different side things that you're doing. You got expeditions, which is the Amitoys. You got fishing right here. So I've been farming this for a while. And you got cooking. So fishing and cooking are basically tied together. Like you can level up cooking without fishing, but fishing on its own is not very beneficial unless you're doing cooking anyway. But both of them together are perfect. I mean, cooking doesn't really take a lot of time. Fishing is super boring. I'm not proud of farming this anyway. But let's just say you're waiting for your teammates, or you're just chilling and waiting for something to happen. Let's say you got like 5 minutes for a field boss portal. You can just hop around somewhere nearby and just fish something, fish a little bit. Eventually, you're gonna unlock a lot of different fishes that is actually very decent for cooking. You actually make some of the best food with fish, so keep that in mind. And sometimes you can actually get lucky and get sellable food, which you can check on the action house. You can sell it. I think I don't have many things right now. I'm just selling a couple of things. They're not very expensive, but you can get some more interesting things depending on what you're cooking. So right, you can check, and you see there's a bunch of different things that go for different prices. That's like lowest price for these. You click on it and then you see different bundles. Obviously, you're not always gonna get the blue one. Obviously, you're gonna get the green one as well. It's a bit cheaper, and you're also gonna get gray one, which is even cheaper. So you gotta sell them like in bigger quantities for people to be able to buy it, because per unit is like, let's say this guy's setting 6. That's the lowest quality. He's setting 6 for 10 lucen, which the average price makes it 1.6 per unit. So obviously you cannot put a single piece of that, because the minimum price you put something on the action house is 10 lucen. So you gotta have multiples to actually make up for that price. But anyway, that's just something that you don't have to do it. You can actually check. That's like a new thing actually, the fishing. That's like a fishing codex. You can check all the fish that you have found in different areas. It's just a little bit of achievements for that. It's not super important. It's not crazy, but it's just for like info. So you can just do these whenever you have free time and you have done everything, but you want to stay until like there's like half an hour for the next field boss and you have no idea what to do. So you can just go around and fish. You can just put something on the side, just watch something on TV or whatever. And then here you can actually check the cooking recipes. For this one, you don't really need to farm that much. You just, over time, you're going to obtain different materials as you play. And you can just cook different things that are useful and so on. So that's another thing you can do. Then another thing, you can just go back to the content, to the manage content section. And you can see Adventure Codex. Like this is the main story. Obviously, you've probably done most of it, but you might be missing something. So you can do that. They give you some rewards actually when you go in here. That's like, that's the Codex. The different levels have rewards around here. So you can check these rewards. You probably obtain them over time. There's Exploration Codex, which is actually additional side quests. As you can see, you probably do most of them. Some are in the dungeons as well. So keep that in mind. That's like just a little bit extra rewards every now and then. You also have collection, but that's like, it's not crazy important. These lost pages and books just collect throughout the world, and they just give you ornate coins, which is just some extra. So keep that in mind. This is the exploration code, as you can see. Every single map would have different ones. Obviously, I did most of them, so we can't really see them anymore. But you got a lot of these things going. You have for the open world dungeons, and also for the co-op dungeons as well. So those things will also give you a little bit of rewards, as you can see, like skill books and things like that. So, and also Solent as well. But obviously a lot of these you just do as you play anyway. But some of them you actually have to go around. Some are related to field bosses or dynamic events, well, static events anyway. So yeah, that's one of the things. Then there's another thing you can do as well. That's Arena. So obviously in Arena, you gotta be ready for this and you gotta be somewhat prepared. And maybe it's not for everybody. It depends on your mindset anyway. You are matchmaked with people on your level. But I wasn't too much into it because you have to specifically build a character for PvP, specifically make a build for that. And just doing PvP is not gonna cut it. So that's like a lot of extra resource just for that. So keep that in mind. But you can still do it, and you can actually make somewhat cheaper build just to do that, just to do the dailies, because you got the weekly missions and you've got different sections here to keep track of. So if you complete these sections in the end of the week, which is like in less than 2 days now, you can choose any of these rewards. That like you can see the random chance for rewards. And the more you have, the more options you have. And also you have a replacement reward, which is trait unlock stones. And this replacement reward is based on how many of these you can complete. So the more you complete, the higher amount of unlock stones you get if you decide to replace your reward. But anyway, for instance, tier 1 co-op dungeons is done as pretty easy. Now, after the new update, we get 55 room chests, which is great. But then if you do the trials, you need 10 trials. You're going to get 100 chests. And if you do 15, you're going to get 150 chests. So these things are pretty decent. Keep track of these. But obviously trials are for like endgame. That's for fresh level 50. Just keep that in mind. They're in the co-op dungeon section right here, dimension trials. Those are really difficult and they only get more and more difficult as you continue to play. Keep that in mind. To get buffed, it's basically the same dungeons tier 2. However, they're only going to get harder and harder as you go. They have tiers. And this is basically the most decent way to obtain runes, which is like a new system. But we're not going to talk about this too much. That's not for fresh level 50 anyway. Another thing you can do is Castle Siege is something that I think it's done once a month, but I'm not 100% sure. Basically, this is accumulated from the game. Basically, it's like tax. So you get 3.6 billion Solent and 32,000 Lucent. And when this siege event happens, it's sort of an end game event, and it's really difficult again for new players. Probably not advisable for new player, but just to say that it's right there if you want to check it out. There are probably guides on that anyway. I've never tried it personally, but a big advantage have any guild that is any big guild with pay to win players anyway, because it's basically mass PvP event, which I'm sure is pretty interesting and pretty engaging. But from what I see, there is no PT counter or any sort of distribution. Basically, the winner takes all. So if you're on the losing side, you're just gonna waste your time anyway. But you can still check it out. So in the end of the day, I just wanted to say that you should forget about the fear of missing out, this kind of thing. I mean, just remember, you didn't lose something that you didn't earn in the first place. So just because tokens are maxed out, that doesn't mean you're losing. Just think about it this way. It's just you're losing the potential to gain something, but that's not as the same as losing. Losing is, for instance, if you have 3,000 Lucent here and you do something that makes you lose 1,000. That's actually lost because you already have it. With that being said, you may disagree with me. That's fine. Generally speaking, what I mean is just have fun with the game. Don't rush, don't go crazy. I mean, a lot of people just exhaust not just themselves, but everybody else and the game as well. And not just this game, but any game. Today's mindset of people is just get it done and get it over with, which to me is pretty bad. I don't like this kind of play style. I just like to explore, to enjoy the game, and actually find people that also enjoy playing this game. And eventually you get to the end game, you're gonna gear up and so on. It doesn't matter if they just add more and more things and you just keep up with it. For me, it doesn't matter if I'm not gonna be in rank 1 or something like that. I don't care about that. I don't play it because of that. So just generally speaking, have fun with the game. It's a video game. You're supposed to have fun with it. It's not a work for the biggest parts anyway. So keep that in mind. And just to put it into perspective, even if some people say it is a casual game, most likely these people are saying it from a point of view of a hardcore player. So if you just look at all the things that I've mentioned that you can do, and probably most of them you should do, you can spend almost your whole day playing the game and not feel suboptimal. Just the 2 different types of dungeons and the Abyssal dungeon as well will take you probably about 2 hours, maybe more. And then with the field bosses and dynamic events, you can just keep going now because you see that they're put in like every single hour. So yeah, some of those things are pretty short, but like I said, you have other things that you can do in between, especially as a new player, you have tons of things to do. So yeah, you can probably spend minimum 5-6 hours per day without even stopping and without even repeating anything at this time. So yeah, those are the main things you can do at level 50. And if you do a lot of those things, this will help you to progress relatively fast. So as you can see, this character is 3.3 thousand combat power. And I've been playing in a very slow paced mode, basically, because I'm also making videos and I'm exploring the game. So I don't really rush and a lot of people can do this way faster than me, and they're probably rushing or playing in a more optimal way. So you can achieve this and more for less time than me anyway. And I played around 200 hours so far, but yeah, you can probably do this like way faster than that anyway. That's about it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you've learned something useful and that you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you guys next time. Have fun with it.